Money managers out with their latest holdings and moves from the first quarter. 13F filings are out revealing the latest trends among hedge funds after a dramatic 3 months for markets. Bloomberg's Hema Parmar is here with more, and we should also put in the caveat that 13Fs only tell us so much.
Yes.
And not everything.
No.
But clearly some of the ones that we go to first are Berkshire Hathaway, Tiger Global, some of the major ones. What stood out, Hema?
Yeah, so some of the key highlights, if we look at Berkshire Hathaway, we knew that he was investing in Amazon, but the new information is, well, how big is this position? We now know it's $860 million. Buffett has long praised Jeff Bezos, said that he wished he got into the stock earlier. Now we have a bit of clarity on the size of that position. He also increased his bets on JP Morgan Chase and in Southwest Airlines. And if we look at Tiger Global, it more than doubled its stake in Facebook. So now it holds, or I should say, as of the end of the first quarter, it held about $1.5 billion worth of stock. To your point before, these filings show us how they did in the first quarter, not how they're doing at this very moment. So the things could have changed since then. D1 Capital. They were one of the biggest hedge fund launchers of last year. They are also in Facebook, so that's one of the more popular stocks. And then we saw a bit of change in some of the Chinese stocks. JD.com was bought by Viking, but sold by Tiger Global, and Alibaba, a bit of a mixed bag there. Coatue, Viking, and Lone Pine all sold and bought by Appaloosa.
Hema, what kind of broader trends have we been able to determine as well, like in terms of movement in and out of equities? Which asset classes broadly are we seeing bought and sold?
So these filings show us really only U.S. long equity positions for the most part. And so if we look at some of the trends within that space, some of the less favored stocks were Boeing, for example, Maverick, Viking, and Dan sometimes D1 all sold entirely their stake in that company. There's been some pressure on the back of news around its 737 MAX. If we look at Viking, it ditched its $1.5 billion stake in General Electric. Unfortunately, that stock has rallied about 40% this year, so that may not have panned out too well. And then if we look at a trend in like technology, for example, FANGs for the most part were fairly popular. Amazon less so. I'm sorry, Alphabet less so. And if we look at Facebook, that was a popular one. Coatue sold out of Spotify almost entirely and also reduced its stock in Amazon, Facebook, Alibaba, and Netflix.
Okay, wow, that's a lot to take in. Some of the stocks that we like to keep an eye on for various reasons, Tesla, PG&E, for example. Well,
yes.
Now we have a decision, but we didn't in the first quarter. And then the IPO stocks as well. Did we learn anything about Lyft, for example?
So for Lyft, it went public in March. Some of the biggest hedge fund investors in Lyft we now know are Millennium, Oxif, hedge fund called Gladebrook Capital Partners. So now we have a bit of insight into some of the bigger holding of this now public company. PG&E, been under pressure for some time, bought by Appaloosa and bought by Blue Mountain, but sold by Millennium and D.E. Shaw. Some of these hedge funds do a lot of trading, so again, it's hard to say how they're positioned at this moment, but we do see, some of these bigger names and how they're flowing in and out, and that might provide some clarity.
Yes.
Yes.
Hema, beginning of the year, Chinese equities had an absolutely sensational run. Who was in?
Chinese equities. So Alibaba was popular. If we look at them, Coatue, Viking, and Lone Pine bought that stock. But Alibaba was also sold by Appaloosa and Point State. More, one of the bigger hedge funds too, they bought about $150 million position in Alibaba. And JD Capital was popular too. That was bought by Viking and sold by Tiger Global. So we do see a bit of movement and a bit of change around some of those Chinese stocks.